There can be no denying that the past decade has seen an explosion in quality in the indie video gaming scene. What was once the playground of big developers has increasingly seen its doors open to smaller and more niche studios and ideas, ranging from anything from auteur pieces focusing on unusual subject matter to homages to classic games the devs grew up with. It's in this latter category that Death's Door resides. Created by the two-person studio Acid Nerve, this dark and cute tribute to the Legend of Zelda series was overall completed by only 5 people, which is an amazing achievement in itself. But when you take a look at the sheer number of accolades and praise being heaped on this game, it's nothing short of incredible. So, today I'm going to look at and try to answer what it is that makes Death's Door so unique, what makes it so widely praised, and why so many are touting it as a Game of the Year contender. Just like any good story, let's start at the beginning. As Death's Door opens, we're treated to a plain, unassuming looking street, the most striking feature of which is the monochromatic style in which it's presented. The opening moments of any kind of media are possibly the most important, as they set the scene. They give you a first impression of what awaits you, and Death's Door is no different. The Reaping Commission HQ is run down, bleak and uninviting. The colour choices, coupled with the subtle but orchestral score, combine to give you this immediate feeling of despair. Already a few seconds in this environment and you can feel the sense of neglect. A bleak and dishevelled looking world with little colour, no feeling and no warmth. The rare use of colour in this area immediately draws the eye. It's in place to take your focus away from the piled up rubbish and the structures that are unused and in disrepair. It's a little trick meant to distract you from the world's overarching ominous feeling of neglect. And this is something that is repeated throughout the entire game in ever so subtle ways. From the tranquil beauty of the autumnal gardens of the Urnwitch's estate, all the way to the silent and foreboding presence of Castle Lockstone, nestled amongst perilous and deadly frozen peaks. It's this attention to detail in the world building that makes Death's Door stand out. Every locale is dripping with character. There's a sense of history to this world, the sense that all the areas are well past their zenith and the ravages of time and neglect are well and truly a part of the fabric of this universe now. From the artificial loneliness of the lost cemetery, through the industrial chaos of the witch's basement laboratory, all the way to the flooded kingdom's decayed and crumbling battlements. All the different biomes share this overarching, aged, decayed feeling. It's this soft world building that has been so expertly crafted by its designers that is one of the main reasons that Death's Door sets itself apart from the usual crop of indie releases in recent memory. As with an opening scene, the first characters you meet in any media can also set the tone for what to expect in the rest of the story. And again, in Death's Door, this is no different. The disinterest and pure apathy that exudes from the first NPCs you run into really drive home that feeling of isolation that is already permeating from the excellent world building. But this isn't just a game of eerie and beautiful locales and strange and foreboding characters alone. It's also a game of comedic moments and humour, whether it's the Frog King and his inflated ego, the ever-positive Pothead, or Jefferson, the friendly and definitely not a squid proprietor of the Stranded Sailor. These brief moments of levity help break up the darker tones of the world. They add breathing room. They allow you to experience the world and not feel crushed under the weight of nothing but despair and depression. At the end of the day, this is a video game, and there needs to be a reason for you to continue playing it, and this would be much more difficult without these ever so important brief moments of respite from the bleakness of the world. Let me use one particular area as an example, the Stranded Sailor. This is a small area over halfway through the game that is populated with all the friendly NPCs you've encountered throughout your adventure. It's one of the only places in the game where you get this true sense of safety. The addition of the friendly NPCs make it almost homely. It's a feeling I can only equate to that sense of a warm and welcoming home on a cold and stormy winter's night. It being one of the only places in the entire game that you can truly relax. A safe haven, almost disconnected from the chaos of the rest of the world. There are other safe places in the game, the forest village and the camp of the Free Crows being a few examples. But there are differences between those and the stranded sailor. There is no looming presence of danger or the crushing weight of destiny here. I think a lot of that has to do with its location. The other two safe areas I mentioned are in the middle of dangerous regions, almost halfway homes used to hide and recover from the violence outside their safety. But the stranded sailor is located before a leg of your adventure, so it doesn't have that feeling that the safety is only temporary. The addition of the aforementioned NPCs help with this as well, as you have met and interacted with them before, which helps build a sort of friendship and relationship with these characters, which the other safe areas lack. It's almost as if you've run into an old friend you haven't seen in years, and you're genuinely happy to see them and catch up. All of this adds to the overall warmth and welcoming nature of the stranded sailor, which is immensely important in providing you with a break from the dangerous worlds of this game. Another aspect of characterization that Death's Door succeeds in is something that many other video games fail with, and that is the silent protagonist. Silent protagonists are utilised so you, the player, can project yourself onto them. They act as a blank slate, an empty shell for you to fill with your personality and feelings. It's a technique used to add to the immersion of a game, but where it often falls flat is in cutscenes and interactions, where your character is directly spoken to or asked a question, where in real life you'd offer an answer or retort. Often your silent protagonist simply stands there, blinking and looking sort of out of place and dumbfounded, which in fact has the undesired effect of breaking the immersion. Where Death's Door remedies this is that in the game, no one really asks you a question. They don't frame their responses exactly to you. They talk at you or around you. They make matter-of-fact statements and ask rhetorical questions that result in no need to answer for yourself. This also has the added benefit of making you feel like your little crow character is no chosen one, but simply a pawn in the game of destiny, which again reaffirms those feelings that the world building creates as you adventure on. Eventually you discover your purpose. You're a soul reaper, a being tasked with retrieving the souls of those who have cheated death's icy grip and grown powerful and dangerous because of it. In any other media, this would be portrayed as an exciting, adventurous and dangerous profession. But here, in keeping with the world around you and the way that everything has been presented, it's just another dead-end 9-to-5 grind. Just another day at a job you have to do, and not one you want to do. Some games have perfected the feeling of unease that comes from potential danger, the faint idea of a jump scare waiting around every corner. But Death's Door accomplishes this with a slightly different approach. It hits the perfect mix of pacing between battles and puzzles. You aren't constantly being bombarded by enemies, so that you feel as if each successive wave of hostiles is never ending. But you do enter each room or area knowing in the back of your mind that there will be a battle at some point. You're just not quite sure when. So you spend your time exploring each and every room for secrets, but the whole time you're on your guard for an ambush or attack. But the game just keeps that thread of suspense going for a little longer than is expected. It leads you to believe that maybe this area you're in truly is a puzzle heavier section. And it's then, when it's led you on just enough, that it'll spring an ambush on you, and you suddenly find yourself in a fight for your life. This balance between combat, puzzles and eerie suspense is perfectly crafted, and it's just another example of what makes this game so damn good. It's easy to see that Death's Door takes some of its inspiration from the Zelda series, with a dollop of Soulsborne thrown in there for good measure too. The game isn't as unforgiving as the Soulsborne series, but it is tricky. Its combat is simplistic. You have a choice of a couple of different weapons, a sword for a balanced and all-round approach, daggers for speedy but weak attacks, a hammer for slow but more powerful attacks, and a broadsword that's also slow but offers slightly more power and reach than the hammer. And you also have an umbrella for the sadists out there. It's not all close combat though. You do have access to various ranged abilities, from a bow and arrow to fireballs to a bomb projectile to a hookshot. All of these abilities can be upgraded at various points, and you can also upgrade your character by expending the soul energy you collect from your victims, and putting them into whatever category you so desire, just like any good RPG these days. Like I said, the combat is a sort of combination of a simplistic Dark Souls meets Zelda vibe, but don't let that put you off in any way whatsoever. This game has the ability to frustrate, and it will punish you for getting overconfident and too cocky. You'll need to take your time, especially with the bosses. Learn their audio and animation cues that signal specific attacks, and take your time whittling down their health bar. And I mean health bar metaphorically, because your enemies don't have health bars, at least not in the traditional sense. Instead, they form cracks on their surface as you take off more and more of their life force. So it's not an exact science, and on more than one occasion, I went in for what I thought would be a dynamic last blow, only to smash my target in the face, or more accurately the ankles, and it turned out that they in fact still had a sliver of life left to give, and they'd consequently turn around and pummel my last health point off instead. But at no point did I feel like breaking my controller out of fury. Instead, I'd pick myself up, dust myself off, give myself a little fighting pep talk, something like, "You've got this, just be patient, don't get cocky kid," and I'd step back into the arena with glorious and triumphant music blaring in my brain, and immediately get smashed into a fine crow paste. Eventually, after many attempts and many pep talks, and after actually taking the time to learn my adversary's attacks and offensive cues, I'd vanquish my foe. And every time without fail, I'd let out a scream of success, something guttural, something primal, something that was intended to let out all of the tension I'd built up from the repeated pummelings. It's been a while since a video game has gotten me so emotionally involved, and this game has done that with a tiny soul-reaping crow. Incredible. And herein lies the beauty of Death's Door. It isn't ripping up any trees in terms of innovation. It isn't setting the bar in terms of graphics or frames per second or whatever technical bar you want to hold it to. But what it excels in is world building and gameplay. The challenge of its creative boss battles, the excitement of exploring a new area in this incredibly crafted world, the fun of tackling another thought-provoking puzzle that's ever so slightly more challenging than the last one. All of this is brought together and wrapped in the careful and personal touches that you so often find from small indie studios these days. At the end of the day, all of this and more combined is what makes Death's Door so incredible. So if you haven't yet, I implore you to go out and check this game out. It's one of those titles that has to be experienced to truly be believed. Its world has to be explored to be fully appreciated. No matter what your preference for video games, I can guarantee you that there is some enjoyment here for you. And at the end of the day, isn't that why we play video games? To enjoy ourselves?